warning. Yes, okay. No need to get accusatory here. I know that you being diseased means that you need to have some souls to keep yourself alive. Otherwise, you will also just die. But that isn't, that wasn't in your contract. You did not put that in your contract. And so I just wanted to make sure that you understood that the souls that you take to satisfy your life is illegal. So, hello there. Well, come in. Yes, have a seat. How are you doing today? Are you doing good? Good. Yeah. I know this is a little bit strange since you're used to working with Death, but Death has decided to take a little bit of a back seat. He's starting to think about sort of scaling up, figuring out like what he should be working on directly versus what he wants to delegate, right? And so I am a new hire. Yes, my name is Basil. I am his personal assistant, and so I'll be taking over in these meetings. Yeah. Yes, I know that you generally work under him. Disease and death work very well together. But just think of me as as I'm not even here, right? I am the mouthpiece for Death, as he does like kind of very important things. This is very minuscule, right? You may be diseased, but what is disease if not, Death's subordinate, right? So we'll just go ahead. This is just sort of it's partially an introductory meeting, partially a few things that we need to talk about. I'm doing this with all of the staff. Famine is next. And we've got a whole bunch on the docket. However, I thought I'd start with you, Disease, because I think that you have been like very loyal to Death for a very, very long time, and I just think that and needed to, you have the right, you sort of deserved to get like first dibs on this meeting, right? So we'll just go ahead and get started. I do have notes. I know Death normally doesn't take any notes, but I'm very meticulous about my work. I have worked in many, many different departments and in many different places here. And I would say that, for the times that I have stayed at each company, I ended up doing massive changes and, the massive restructuring that led to just skyrocketing profits to mainly the one in charge and never to the people below. Anyway. So in this meeting, I'm just going to talk to you about the agenda right now. So we're going to go through a little bit of an orientation, just, I am new here, so it is beneficial to me to get to know each person in their own terms, right? In their own way. And also to just sort of like, let's have let's talk, let's chat, right? After that, I'm going to give you a little bit of praise, right? These are things that Death has noticed and has taken note of in your work. While I am going to do that with everybody, I will say that you have done very, very good things that Death wanted me to make sure that you knew that. Afterwards, we're going to go through a little bit of feedback. This is something, as you know, Death is very awkward, right? They don't really know how to approach topics like this, right? And, oh no, yeah, see, and you get it. Yeah. So really, the only thing that we need to talk about here is just like a little bit of feedback, just things that you can think of and keeping an eye on in your work so that you can just be better for the company. Next, we're going to go through a little bit of brainstorming on your next disease. I noticed that you've had, you've had some bangers. You've had some really good bangers. However, you're in a little bit of a slump. And I do think that with me, you will be able to come up with like the next big disease, right? So, but we'll get to it, right? And this is just me sort of dipping my toe in, trying to figure out sort of how each person ends up working in their department. And then we're going to talk just a little bit about the benefits restructuring that's happening right now. Death didn't really mention it, but it is something that we are going to have to talk about, okay? So, and with that, do you have any questions so far? Yes, so the benefits restructuring is going to happen at the end, and it will take over the Q&A section. So you won't have time to ask any questions if you don't interrupt me. So, but you are, of course, not allowed to interrupt me. So, with that, let's just move on to the orientation. So, I know that you go by disease, but could I get your full name? Okay. Yes, see, I read that. In your docket. Oh yes, death has a docket on each person. However, it's a very typical name, I would think. And I didn't want to, it's kind of stereotypical, and I didn't want to be offensive. But okay. And how many years have you been with death at this company? Okay, yeah. Oh my God, you've done work here. Yeah. Oh, you were here during like its inception. That's crazy. I bet you have so many stories to tell, but unfortunately we don't have time. Okay, so next, can you tell me, just off the top of your head, how many deaths do you think you've caused? Yes, I am asking you to take your summation of your entire existence and boil it down to a single number so that I could compare it to other people and figure out how much you are actually worth. Yes, okay. That's a good amount, I haven't heard anyone else's. You are the first person here, but that's pretty. I would say that's pretty good. That's that's nothing to scoff at. So can you tell me about a time that you're most creative killing? I would really love to hear about that. Okay. Okay. Interesting. And could you explain to me what about that reads to you as creative? I understand that if I don't get it, it might just be on me. However, I don't think that it is. So if you could just tell me. Okay. Oh yeah, everything's fine. No, listen, we're good. Everything is good. And this is just one of those situations where I have to, prioritize sort of what this is all on death, right? Like death has been. I definitely have not been someone who was brought on to sort of consult and bring in the money for everybody by suggesting certain maneuvers, exploitation and whatnot. So can you tell me what was your most efficient killing? You don't remember. Okay, yeah. Interesting. So yeah, this is something that I find very interesting, and I'm going to be asking everybody this, but one of the main goals that I have sort of set by coming into this company and sort of being onboarded onto this team is that I do think that efficiency is not really talked about and not really thought about. If you an efficient team is a happy team, and a happy team is a efficient team, right? So what you want to do is think about ways in which you can be very efficient with your diseases, and incredibly what's the word? Efficient. We just need you to be efficient. You have a little bit of back talk on you. Yes, that wasn't the most efficient way I could have communicated that that sentence. However, I do think that a little bit of snark, I'll let it, respect. Okay. Now, this is something that we normally, not we, but Death has not really asked that very much, but I tend to like having it just, in case something comes up or in case things happen. It's just so that we have sort of an idea as to what's going on in your non-work life, right? So do you have any family? Okay. And how about loved ones? Do you have any loved ones? Your family doesn't have to be loved ones. Okay. Okay. And do you have any health issues? I know, ironic. Yeah, no, this is one of those things where it's just, we like to know these things. I tend to think that I tend to tell a lot of the higher ups that, if you don't have that information, then there's no way that you can have a personal bond with your employees. And without that personal bond, then how are you going to tug on their heartstrings to get them to work harder, right? It's also one of those things where, if you can't blackmail them with the potential harming of their family members or their loved ones, then how are you supposed to get them to do anything, right? So it's just, we're just getting with the times, right? I think it's just bringing you into this current century, right? Yeah, and the current practices. I think that's what's pretty important. So, moving on, let's talk about praise. Now, this is going to be a section that I'm sure you're going to love. Everybody's going to love it, I'm sure. But first of all, I just wanted to say excellent job on the pandemic. I think that truly a brilliant move on your part. The return on investment on that was truly amazing. We saw, I was looking at sort of the data on it, and it was so valuable for the death stock. It just kept rising and rising, and to be honest, like, it's still rising, and people aren't really talking about it anymore, and that's truly a wonderful thing for us. It also helped lessen the burden on the other departments. I think you did a very, very brilliant job taking into consideration that other departments were kind of getting stressed and burnt out. So you took it upon yourself to create an overarching sort of phenomenon that everybody in the world had to deal with. And so the focus was more on you. I think that was incredibly self-sacrificial, and selfless. However, I would say that, it's truly a wonderful thing that you've done. Also, this is a personal note. I was looking through the files. Since I'm new here, your collab with propaganda was truly great. You had people, they created a vaccine, and yet you collabed with propaganda to convince them not to take it. That's truly amazing. So, giving you praise on your future work, I definitely have to say measles. Way to make it have a comeback. Have you been digging through the files? You have. See, I knew it, because it's truly ingenious. The infrastructure here at the company, it's already in place. You just had to, again, your use of propaganda is truly wonderful, sort of expertly done. And it has wonderful potential, right? Measles was sort of, I believe the person who was diseased beforehand, when they created measles, and this is all from the notes in the files, but when they created it, I don't think they knew what they had in mind. And I don't think they knew how much of a goldmine it was. And so you're sort of bringing it back. It's great on you. And the next thing, this is something that I've heard a lot. I have talked to a few other people, and they've made great mention about just like your general positive attitude. For someone who is in charge of like all of disease in the world, it's truly wonderful that like you have such a positive and outgoing attitude. Disease tends to make people very inward, and tends to make the person in control of disease very inward. And it's very wonderful that you've decided to sort of combat that in your own way. So that's truly wonderful. Okay, so that's all the praise that we have for you. If you think that there's other things that we needed to praise you on, that you could always just write a note for us. However, we would say, just think about whether it was actually praiseworthy or whether you were just sort of seeking attention, right? Next, let's talk about your feedback for you. Now, of course, we just gave you praise. So let's give you a little bit of feedback, even that out so that your ego doesn't get too big. The first thing that we're going to talk about is you're a little slow. You had the pandemic, you have measles, sort of, but in terms of day to day, you're sort of slow on the uptick. You're late to meetings. You're even to this meeting. I didn't make mention of it, but you are a little bit late, right? So I'd say that you're just like a little bit slow, and I do understand that when you are in charge of disease, it just sort of eats away at you, and it sort of becomes a part of you, and it's just sort of the nature of things that you end up moving at like a crawl or like a crawl's pace. But um, I just need you to fix that, right? Remember, efficiency. And efficiency is the name of the game, and we do need you to sort of think about that. So that is one. Two, there has been talks about unionizing, and I do hear that you are the one that's sort of the person in charge of that. I am curious about your thoughts on that. Do you feel like you need to be unionizing? Okay. Right. So this is a sensitive topic that we're going to have to discuss a little bit more in detail. However, this is something that involves a lot of other people, so we won't get into it too much. But I will say, remember that. Remember sort of all the family and loved ones that we were talking about before? Yeah, they might come into play here. I'm just letting you know, because like I'm always on the side of the worker, right? I truly want my workers to feel like they're really represented and they're really cared for. And so in that way, I really want you to know that we are going to use them as leverage to get you to drop the unionizing. So just something to let you know about that. And I'm going to write that down here. Yeah, just so that if we ever get into a legal battle and we have to go up, to God and sort of have at it, right? I just want to have all this information recorded. Okay, so and we're just gonna move on from that. Like, I know it's a little bit tense, but no, it's totally fine. I know that you're not really apologizing, but I'm letting you know I accept your apology. Okay, next, I do think in terms of feedback, you delegate a little bit too much, right? I know you have your little viruses, you have your bacteria, and you have all these little things, right? All these little things that sort of do your bidding for you. But I would say that we do need you to do a little bit of the heavy lifting yourself, just a little bit, right? Every now and then, pick up the scythe. Go over there and just chop a head off. Yes, I understand that is encroaching on the death space, and you are disease. However, it's all two sides of the same coin, right? We just sort of need you to show initiative here. We need you to show that you take your job seriously and you take this company seriously. Are you having a hard time believing this is coming from death? Yeah, this is totally all from death. Okay. So, okay. Next, let's talk about another sort of sensitive topic: illegal collection of souls. So I know that souls. I'm a very good person, and I know that I know very little about what goes on in the outside world when it comes to the illegal, the black market, like selling of souls, using it to get high, that sort of thing. We need you to understand that any souls that are collected without our knowledge are recorded, and they are in the system. It just takes a few button presses for us to get there. So this is it's a very, very light warning. Yes, okay. No need to get accusatory here. I know that you being diseased means that you need to have some souls to keep yourself alive. Otherwise, you will also just die. But that isn't, that wasn't in your contract. You did not put that in your contract. And so I just wanted to make sure that you understood that the souls that you take to satisfy your life is illegal. So just letting you know, we will come back to that later. Not in this meeting again. This is just sort of an introductory meeting so that, we can get together and just sort of jab. Freudian slip there. Okay, so next let's talk about Death himself. Death wanted me to talk to you about your ongoing friendship and perhaps the potential end of it. Listen, you guys have been friends for a very long time, ever since you guys were roommates, uh, you know, back in sort of your college days. You guys have been through a lot. You've seen him throw up, you've seen him get too drunk, blackout drunk. You yourself have been incredibly what's the word, you've been a mess in front of him, right? And it's just one of those things where you have a lot of history with him, right? And what I would say is that now you guys are in very different spaces. You're in very different places, and he is up at the top, and you're here. And really, what's gonna have to happen is that you have to stop being really friendly to him. When you're in the break room with him, and you want to say hi and you want to start talking and you start sort of like laughing about the good old times, I would say refrain from doing that just a little bit, so that other people can sort of start to respect him a little bit more. And yes, I know that I'm sort of breaking you up. Like, you're having a friend break up with Death, but he's not even here. He's going through me. But I would say that this is probably the most professional way to go about it. If you have any messages for Death, I would say instead of slacking him, just come to me, right? Slack me. And I will then send the messages off to him, because he's just a very busy person now. So I'm just going to do that. Okay. Do you need a moment? I know it's very sad, but let's go. Okay, so next this is a few complaints. I have never been at trivia night. However, I have heard that there's a little bit of cheating that goes on during trivia night. And everybody has they like to cheat as much as you do, but they respect everybody enough to do it without others noticing. You're just a little bad at it, so you either have to get better or you have to quit it. So, okay. All right, so that's all the feedback. Yes, I know that was a little harsh, but don't worry. We're going to move on to brighter things. We're going to look to the future, see what we have to see, right? So let's brainstorm a few different things, few different diseases that we need to do, right? So I just have a few ideas, and I just wanted to run them by you, right? Shrinking, that could be a disease, right? Like I was thinking about it, like someone could just shrink and shrink and shrink, and then they could just poof out of thin air, right? And then just be gone, and I think that would be really helpful, because then their souls would be really, really tiny once they die, and that would just be really good for us, because then we're conserving space. It's really, again, efficiency. It's two birds with one stone. There is the soul morgue, and heaven is getting really, really full. So it's just one of those things where I'm just thinking ahead, and I'm just thinking about what we can do to fix that. So yeah, shrinking, yay or nay? Oh, what do you know? I think that it's a brilliant idea. And, I will talk about it, but if you don't think so, you do have a lot more experience at this than I do. However, I will say that I am at I have sort of been brought in at a higher position. So, okay, so next, sort of just like off the top of my head, I was thinking about this. Yes, I do know brainstorming does involve not looking at your notes. However, I'm not very good at coming up with things on the spot, so I do have a few notes in terms of the brainstorming. And you feel free to jump in and let me know what things that you have been planning, things that you've been thinking of. So I've been thinking like limbs falling off. I think that there's something really, really worth it there, right? Because if we could just have a disease of some kind that just makes limbs fall off, right? Like if you just like one day you wake up and your finger's gone, right? I think that would be very, very good. And in fact, I think it would probably help humankind. I do think that in terms of efficiency might be a little hard, because, when limbs fall off and then the person dies, then you have to collect all the little bits of soul that was in every appendage and sort of stick them back together in sort of this horrifying amalgamation of a soul. But that's, I do think that that's a way to create sort of a very cheap drug, right? And I like, again, I don't know anything about the black market, don't know anything about that. But if people are taking souls, they may as well take those, right? Just sort of, because I think that people who work here, we're never going to be able to squash people just siphoning off just a little bit of souls off the top, right? But if we're able to sort of get them something that is really cheap, and that would, they could sell at a premium, but doesn't cost us very much, I think it would be best, the best of both worlds, right? So, and then the third thing, I keep hearing this thing about brain rot, and honestly, that would be a really rare disease, right? Oh, I see. So it's sort of half disease that you're already collaborating on something like. I totally understand. Yeah, I don't want to step on your toes. I'm not trying to take your job or anything, but okay. So since you have been sort of working on that already and sort of thinking about that, I will just sort of write that down. Yeah. Well, why are you looking over here? I did not put the creator as me. No, it's yeah. See? Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So next, let's talk about benefits. And so the benefits restructuring that's happening. So with sort of this new move that we're doing and with my hiring, we are moving to a no PTO sort of framework. I think this is going to be incredibly helpful for the company and the workers, because the workers are going to eat, sleep, drink this job. And because they're going to be doing that, they're going to know the ins and outs. And that way they're going to be very invested, right? So I think that no PTO. I also think that, if you try to rebel, we will kill your whole family and your loved ones. It's something that, I'm just going to go right out and say, and you can tell other people about it if you want. They are going to hear it directly from me later on. It's just, it's a benefit. I would also say there is going to be an in-office gym that is very useful. However, the Greek gods are sort of upset with us because we're using the term gymnasium, and that was a word that originated with them to mean sort of working out naked. So they are enforcing that on us, but at least you have a place to work out. And lastly, of course, we are installing a new water cooler. Yes, it's going to be very, very helpful for everybody involved, really. Okay. Any questions on that? Oop, nope, you don't have time. So let's just put this away now. Yes. So how are you feeling? You can talk to me. Absolutely. Listen, I know that it's a lot of information and some of it is not necessarily what you want to hear, but this is for the benefit of the company, and I really hope that you can maybe understand that, right? This is something that you and I and everybody here are going to work on together, right? This is a ship, and we're all working on the ship together. And we're all going on waves, and we're trying to survive, right? And it's a very harsh time. We are in a recession here, sort of in the ethereal plane. So, if you do lose this job, I do think it's going to be very difficult for you to find something else, especially because you've been here a long time and haven't diversified your resume. You've sort of worked the same job for a long time, and your life depends on the souls that come in here. So you're going to have to go to the black market if you lose this job. So really, you have not a lot of choices. Yes. In addition to being the personal assistant, I will also be sort of a part-time counselor for anybody that needs to talk to anybody, because I do think that I provide a very nice presence for everybody here at the team. But yeah, so hopefully you feel good after this and you sort of understand where we're headed. If you have any questions, feel free to Slack me, and don't Slack Death. He's very clear about that. So yeah. All right then. You have a wonderful day and get started on the shrinking disease, because I think that's going to be a banger. Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye then.